Thursday, December 1st, 2022. And we are going to start in the book of the Sefer Bible. And we're reading the book of Jasher. We're going to continue. I'm starting at chapter 18. And it says as thus: And Abraham rose and did all that Elohim had ordered him. And he took the men of his household and those bought with his money, and he circumcised them. And Yahuwah had commanded him, and there was not one of them left whom he did not circumcise. And Abraham and his son Yishmael were circumcised in the flesh of their foreskin. 13 years old was Yishmael when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And in the third day, Abraham went out of his tent and sat at the door to enjoy the heat of the sun, enduring the pain of his flesh, during the pain of his flesh. And Yahuwah appeared to him in the plain of Mamre and sent 3 of his ministering angels to visit him. And he was sitting at the door of the tent, and he lifted his eyes and saw, lo, 3 men were coming from a distance, and he rose up and ran to meet them. And he bowed down to them and brought them into his house. And he said to them, If now I have found favor in your sight, turn in and eat a morsel of bread. And he pressed them, and they turned in, and he gave them water and washed their feet. And he placed them under a tree at the door of the tent. And Abram ran and took a calf, and tender and good, and he hastened to kill it. And he gave it to his servant Eliezer to dress. And Abraham came to Sarah in the tent, and he said to her, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes to cover the pot containing the meat. And she did so. And Abraham hastened and brought before them butter and milk, beef and mutton, and gave it before them to eat, before the flesh of the calf was sufficiently done. And they did eat. And when they had done eating, one of them said to him, I will return to you according to the time of life. Sarah, your woman, shall have a son. And the men afterwards departed and went their ways to the places to which they were sent. In those days, all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah and of the whole 5 cities were exceedingly wicked and sinful against Yahuwah. And they provoked Yahuwah with their abominations, and they strengthened in aging abominably and scornfully before Yahuwah. And their wickedness and crimes were in those days great before Yahuwah. And they had in their land a very extensive valley, about half a day's walk. And in it there were fountains of water and a great deal of herbage surrounding the water. And all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah went there 4 times in a year with their women and children and all belonging to them. And they rejoiced there with timbrels and dancing. And in the time of rejoicing, they would all rise and lay hold of their neighbor's woman, and some, the virgin daughters of their daughters, and they enjoyed them. And each man saw his woman and daughter in the hands of his neighbor and did not say a word. And they did so from morning to night. And afterwards returned home, each man to his house, and each woman to her tent. So they always did 4 times. So they always did 4 times in a year. Also, a stranger came into their cities and brought goods which he had purchased with a view to dispose of there. The people of these cities would assemble, men, women, and children, young and old, and to the man, and take his goods by force, giving a little to each man until there was an end to all the goods of the owner which he had brought into the land. And if the owner of the goods quarrel with them, saying, What is this work which you have done to me? Then they would approach to him one by one, and would show him the little which he took, and taunt him, saying, I only took that little which you did give me. And when he heard this from them all, he would arise and go from them in sorrow and bitterness of soul. And when they all arise and go after him and drive him out of the city with great noise and tumult, And there was a man from the country of Elam who was leisurely going on the road, seated upon his ass, which carried a fine mantle of diverse colors. And the mantle was bound with a cord upon the ass. And the man was on his journey, passing through the street of Sodom when the sun set in the evening. And he remained there in order to abide during the night, but no one would let him into his house. And at that time there were in Sodom a wicked and mischievous man, one skillful to do evil, and his name was Hadad. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the traveler in the street of the city, and he came to him and said, Whence come you, and whither do you go? And the man said to him, I am traveling from Chevron to Elam, where I belong. And as I passed, the sun set, and no one would suffer me to enter his house, though I had bread and water, and also straw and provender for my ass, and am short of nothing. And Hadad answered and said to him, All that you shall want shall be supplied by me, but in the street you shall not abide all night. And Hadad brought him to his house, and he took off the mantle from the ass with the cord, and brought them to his house. And he gave the ass straw, and provender, while the traveler ate and drank in Hadad's house. And he abode there that night. And in the morning the traveler rose up early to continue his journey. When Hadad said to him, Walk, comfort your heart with a morsel of bread, and then go. And the man did so, and he remained with him. And they both ate and drank together during the day, when the man rose up to go. And Hadad said to him, Behold, now the day is declining. You had better remain all night, that your heart may be comforted. And he pressed him so that he tarried there all night. And on the second day he rose up early to go away. And when Hadad pressed him, saying, Comfort your heart with a morsel of bread, and then go. And he remained and ate with him also the second day. And then the man rose up to continue his journey. And Hadad said to him, Behold, now the day is declining. Remain with me to comfort your heart, and in the morning rise up early and go your way. And the man would not remain, but rose, saddled his ass. And while he was saddling his ass, the woman of Hadad said to her man, Behold, this man has remained with us for 2 days, eating and drinking. He has given us nothing. And now shall he go away from us without giving anything? And Hadad said to her, Be silent. And the man saddled his ass to go, and he asked Hadad to give him the cord and mantle to tie it upon the ass. And Hadad said to him, What say you? And he said to him, That you only, Adonai, shall give me the cord and the mantle, made with diverse colors, which you did conceal with you in your house to take care of. And Hadad answered the man, saying, This is the interpretation of your dream. The cord which you did see means that your life will be lengthened out like a cord. And having seen the mantle colored with all sorts of colors means that you shall have a vineyard in which you will plant trees of all fruits. And the traveler answered, saying, Not so, my Adonai, for I was awake when I gave you the cord, and also a mantle woven with different colors, which you did take off the ass to put them by for me. And Hadad answered and said, Surely I have told you the interpretation of your dream, and it is a good dream. And this is the interpretation thereof. Now the sons of men give me 4 pieces of silver, which is my charge for interpreting dreams. And of you only I require 3 pieces of silver. And the man was provoked at the words of Hadad, and he cried bitterly. And he brought Hadad to Sherach, judge of Sodom. And the man laid his cause before Sherach, the judge, when Hadad replied, saying, It is not so, but thus the matter stands. And the judge said to the traveler, This man Hadad tells you truth, for he is framed in the cities for the accurate interpretation of dreams. And the man cried at the word of the judge, and he said, Not so, my Adonai. But it was in the day that I gave him the cord and mantle which was upon the ass, in order to put them by in his house. And they both disputed before the judge, and the one saying, Thus the matter was, and the other declaring otherwise. And Hadad said to the man, Give me 4 pieces of silver that I charge for my interpretations of dream. I will not make any allowance. and give me the expense of the 4 meals that you did eat in my house. And the man said to Hadad, truly, I will pay you for what I ate in your house. Only give me the cord and mantle which you did conceal in your house. And Hadad replied before the judge and said to the man, did I not tell you the interpretation of your dream? The cord means that your days shall be prolonged like a cord, and the mantle that you will have in a vineyard is which you will plant all kinds of fruit trees. This is the proper interpretation of your dream. Now give me the 4 pieces of silver that I require at compensation, for I will make you no allowance. And the man cried at the words of Hadad, and they both quarreled before the judge. And the judge gave orders to his servants, who drove them rashly from the house. And they went away quarreling from the judge. And when the people of Sodom heard them, they gathered about them, and they exclaimed against the stranger, and they drove him rashly from the city. And the man continued his journey upon his ass with bitterness of soul, lamentating and weeping. And when he was going along, he wept at what had happened to him in the corrupt city of Sodom. Chapter 19. And the cities of Sodom had 4 judges to 4 cities, and these were their names: Sharach in the city of Sodom, Shakad, in Amorite, in Amorah, Sanak, and Admah, and Meon, and Tezvaim, and Elazar. Abraham's servant applied to them different names, and he converted Sharach to Shakira, Sharad to Shakur, and Sebnak to Kenzavenium, and Meon to Nazlolian. And by desire of their 4 judges, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah had beds erected in the streets of the cities. And if a man came to these places, they laid hold of him and brought him to one of their beds, and by force made him to lie in them. And as he laid down, 3 men would stand at his head and 3 at his feet, and measure him by the length of the bed. And if the man was less than the bed, these 6 men would stretch him at each end, and when he cried out to them, they would not answer him. And if he was longer than the bed, they would draw together the 2 sides of the bed at each end until the man had reached the gates of death. And if he continued to cry out to them, they would answer him, saying, thus shall it be done to a man that comes into our land. And when men heard all these things that the people of the city of Sodom did, they refrained from coming there. And when a poor man came to the land, they would give him silver and gold, and cause a proclamation in the whole city not to give him a morsel of bread to eat. And if the stranger should remain there some days and die from hunger, not having been able to obtain a morsel of bread, then at his death all the people of the city would come and take their silver and gold which they had given to him. And those that could recognize the silver or gold which they had given him took it back. And at his death they also stripped him of his garments, and they would fight about him. And he that prevailed over his neighbor took them. And they would after that carry him and bury him under some of the shrubs in the desert. So they did all the days to anyone that came to them and died in their land. Wow. And in the course of time, Sarah sent Elazar to Sodom to see Lot and inquire after his welfare. And Elazar went to Sodom, and he met a man of Sodom fighting with a stranger. And the man of Sodom stripped the poor man of all his clothes and went away. And this poor man cried to Elazar and supplicated his favor on account of what the man of Sodom had done to him. And he said to him, why do you act thus to the poor man who came to your land? And the man of Sodom answered Elazar, saying, is this man your brother, or have the people of Sodom made you a judge this day? But you speak about this man. And Elazar strove with the man of Sodom on account of the poor man. And when Elazar approached to recover the poor man's clothes from the man of Sodom, he hastened with a stone and smote Elazar in the forehead. And the blood flowed copiously from Elazar's forehead. And when the man saw the blood, he caught hold of Elazar, saying, "Give me my hire for having rid you of this bad blood that was in your forehead." For such is the custom and the law in our land. And Elazar said to him, "You have wounded me and required me to pay you hire? Pay you hire?" And Elazar would not hearken to the words of the man of Sodom. And the man laid hold of Elazar and brought him to Shaphat, the judge of Sodom, for judgment. And the man spoke to the judge, saying, "I beseech you, my Adonai, thus has this man done, for I smote him with a stone, that the blood flowed from his forehead, and he is unwilling to give me my hire." And the judge said to Elazar, "This man speaks truth to you. Give him his hire, for he is the custom in our land. For this is the custom in our land." And Elazar heard the words of the judge, and he lifted up a stone and smote the judge. And the stone struck on his forehead, and the blood flowed copiously from the forehead of the judge. And Elazar said, "If this then is the custom in your land, give you unto this man what should have given him. For this has been your decision. You did decree it." And Elazar left the man of Sodom with the judge, and he went away. And when the kings of Elam had made war with the kings of Sodom, the kings of Elam captured all the property of Sodom and took Lot captive and with his property. And when it was told to Abraham, he went and made war with the kings of Elam, and he had covered from them their heads all the property of Lot, as well as the property of Sodom. And at that time, the woman of Lot bore him a daughter, and he called her name Pateth, saying, "Because Elohim has delivered him and his whole household from the kings of Elam." And Pateth, daughter of Lot, grew up, and one of the men of Sodom took her for a woman. And a poor man came into the city to seek maintenance, and he remained in the city some days. And all the people of Sodom caused a proclamation of their custom not to give this man a morsel of bread to eat until he dropped dead upon the earth. And they did so. And Pateth, the daughter of Lot, saw this man lying in the streets, starved with hunger, and no one would give him anything to keep him alive. And he was just upon the point of death. And their soul was filled with pity on account of the man. And she fed him secretly with bread for many days. And the soul of this man was revived. For when she went forth to fetch water, she would put the bread in the water pitcher, and when she came to the place where the poor man was, she took the bread from the pitcher and gave it to him to eat. So she did many days. And so the people of Sodom and Gomorrah wondered how this man could bear starvation for so many days. And they said to each other, "This can only be that he eats and drinks, for no man can bear starvation for so many days or live as this man has lived, without even his countenance changing." And 3 men concealed themselves in a place where the poor man was stationed, to know who it was that brought him bread to eat. And Pateth, daughter of Lot, went forth that day to fetch water, and she put bread into a pitcher of water. And she went to draw water by the poor man's place, and she took out the bread from the pitcher and gave it to the poor man, and he ate it. And the 3 men saw what Pateth did to the poor man. And they said to her, "It is you, then, who's been supporting him. And therefore has he not starved, nor changed in appearance, nor died like the rest." And the 3 men went out of the place in which they were concealed. And they seized Pateth and the bread which was in the poor man's hand. And they took Pateth and brought her before their judges. And they said to them, "Thus did she so, and it is who supplied the poor man with bread. Therefore did he not die all this time. Now therefore declare to us the punishment due to this woman for having transgressed our law." For the people of Sodom and Gomorrah assembled and kindled a fire in the streets of the city, And they took the woman and cast her into the fire, and she was burned to ashes. And in the city of Ammah, there was a woman to whom they did the like. For a traveler came into the city of Ammah to abide there all night, and with the intentions of going home in the morning, and he sat opposite the door of the house of the young woman's father to remain there. And as the sun had set, when he had reached that place, and the young woman saw him sitting by the door of the house, and he asked her a drink of water. And she said to him, "Who are you?" And he said to her, "I was this day going on the road, and reach here when the sun sets. So I will abide here all night. In the morning I will arise and continue my journey." And the young woman went into the house and fetched the man bread and water to eat and drink. And this affair became known to the people of Ammon. And they assembled and brought the young woman before the judges, that they should judge her for this act. And the judge said, "The judge of death must pass upon this woman, because she transgressed after our law. And this, therefore, is the decision concerning her." And the people of those cities assembled and brought out the young woman and anointed her with honey from head to foot. And as the judge had decreed, they placed her before a swarm of bees, which went then in their hives, and the bees flew upon her and stinged her, that her whole body was swelled. And the young woman cried out on account of the bees, but no one took notice of her or pitied her, and her cries ascended to heaven. And Yahuwah was provoked at this, and at all the works of the city of Sodom, and for they had abundance of food, and had tranquility against them, and still would not sustain the poor and the needy. And in those days their evil doings and sins became great before Yahuwah. And Yahuwah sent for two of the angels that had come to Abraham's house to destroy Sodom and its cities. And the angels rose up from the door of Abraham's tent after they had eaten and drank, and they reached Sodom in the evening. And Lot was then sitting in the gate at Sodom. And when he saw them, he arose to meet them. Then he bowed down to the ground, and he pressed them greatly, and brought them into the house. And he gave them victuals, which they ate, and they abode all night in his house. And the angel said to Lot, "Arise, go forth from this place, and you and all your belongings to you, lest you be consumed in the iniquity of this city, for Yahuwah will destroy this place." And the angels laid hold upon the hand of Lot, and upon the hand of his woman, and upon the hand of his children, and all belonging to him, and they brought him forth and set him without the cities. And they said to Lot, "Escape for your life." And he fled, and all belonging to him. Then Yahuwah rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah, and upon all the cities brimstone and fire from Yahuwah out of heaven. And he overthrew these cities, and all the cities of the Jordan, and all the inhabitants of the cities that grew upon the ground. And Adu, the woman of Lot, looked back to see the destruction of the cities, for her compassion was moved on account of her daughters who remained in Sodom, for they did not go with her. And when she looked back, she became a pillar of salt, and it is yet in that place until this day. And the oxen which stood in that place daily licked up the salt to the extremities of their feet. And in the morning it will spring forth afresh, and they again licked it up until this day. And Lot and two of his daughters that remained with him fled and escaped to the cave of Adullam, and they remained there for some time. And Abraham rose up early in the morning to see what had been done to the cities of Sodom. And he looked and beheld the smoke of the cities going up like the smoke of a furnace. And Lot and his two daughters remained in the cave, and they made their father drink wine, and they laid with him. For they said there was no man upon the earth that could raise up seed from them, for they thought that the whole earth was destroyed. And they both lay with their father, and they conceived and bore sons. And the firstborn called the name of their son Moab, which is Moab, saying, "From my father did I conceive him, and he is the father of the Moabim until this day." And the younger and the younger also called her son Benjamin, as he is the father of the children of Ammon until this day. And after this, Lot and his two daughters went away from there, and he dwelled on the other side of the Jordan with their two daughters and their sons. And the sons of Lot grew up, and they went and took themselves women from the land of Canaan, and they begot children, and they were fruitful and multiplied. Chapter 20. And at that time, Abram journeyed from the plain of Mamre, and he went to the land of the Philistines, which he dwelled in Gerar. It was in the 25th year of Abraham being in the land of Canaan, and the 100th year of the life of Abraham. But he came to Gerar in the land of the Philistines. And when they entered the land, he said to Sarah, his woman, "Say you are my sister to anyone that shall ask you, in order that you may escape the evils of the inhabitants of the land." And as Abraham was dwelling in the land of the Philistines, the servants of Amalek, king of the Philistines, saw that Sarah was exceedingly beautiful. And they asked Abraham concerning her. And he said, "She is my sister." And the servants of Amalek went to Amalek, saying, "A man from the land of Canaan is come to dwell in the land, and he has a sister that is exceeding fair." And Amalek heard the words of his servant, who praised Sarah to him. And Amalek sent his officers, and they brought Sarah to the king. And Sarah came to the house of Amalek, and the king saw that Sarah was beautiful, and she pleased him exceedingly. And he approached her and said to her, "What is that man to you, whom you did come to our land?" And Sarah answered and said, "He is my brother, and he came from the land of Canaan to dwell wherever we could find a place." And Amalek said to Sarah, "Behold, my land is before you. Place your brother in any part of the land that pleases you, and it will be our duty to exalt and elevate him above all the people of the land, since he is your brother." And Amalek sent for Abraham, and Abraham came to Amalek. And Amalek said to Abraham, "Behold, I have given orders that you shall be honored as you desire on account of your sister Sarah." And Abraham went forth from the king, and the king's presence followed him. And as at evening before men lie down to rest, the king was sitting upon his throne, and a deep sleep fell upon him. And he laid upon the throne and slept till morning. And he dreamed that an angel of Yahuwah came to him with a drawn sword in his hand. And the angel stood over Amalek and wished to slay him with the sword. And the king was terrified in his dream, and said to the angel, "In what have I sinned against you, that you come to slay me with your sword?" And the angel answered and said to Amalek, "Behold, you die on account of the woman which you did yesternight. Bring to your house, for she is married, she is a married woman, the woman Abraham who came to your house. Now therefore return that man his woman, for she is his woman. And should you not return her, know that you will surely die, you and all your belonging to you." And on that night there was a great outcry in the land of the Philistines, and the inhabitants of the land saw the figure of a man standing with a drawn sword in his hand, and he smote the inhabitants of the land with the sword. Yeah, he continued to smite them. And the angel of Yahuwah smote the land of the Philistines on that night, and there was a great confusion on that night and on the following morning. And every womb was closed, and all the issues, and the hand of Yahuwah was upon them on account of Sarah, woman of Abraham, whom Amalek had taken. And in the morning Amalek rose with terror and confusion, and with a great dread. He sent and had his servants called in, and related his dream to them, and the people were greatly afraid. And one man standing among the servants of the king answered the king, saying, "O sovereign king, restore this woman to her man, for he is her man." For the like happened to the king of Egypt when this man came to Egypt. And he said concerning his woman, "She is my sister." And he said concerning his woman, she is my sister, for she is his manner of doing what he comes to dwell in the land in which he is a stranger. And Pharaoh sent and took this woman for a woman, and Yahuwah brought upon him grievous plagues until he returned the woman to her man. Now therefore, O sovereign king, know what happened yesternight to the whole land, for there was a very great consternation and great pain and lamentation, and we know that it was on account of the woman which you did take. Now therefore, restore this woman to her man, lest it should befall us as it did to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and his subjects, and that we may not die. And Amalek hastened and called and had Sarah called for. And she came before him, and he had Abraham called for, and he came before him. And Amalek said to them, what is this work you've been doing, in saying you are brother and sister? And I took this woman for a woman. And Abraham said, because I thought I should suffer death on account of my woman. And Amalek took flocks and herds and manservants and maidservants and 1,000 pieces of silver. He gave them to Abraham, and he returned Sarah to him. And Amalek said to Abraham, behold, the whole land is before you. Dwell in it wherever you shall choose. And Abraham and Sarah, his woman, went forth from the king present with honor and respect, and they dwelled in the land, even in Gerar. And all the inhabitants of the land of the Philistines and the king's servants were still in pain through the plague which the angel had inflicted upon them the whole night on account of Sarah. And Amalek sent for Abraham, saying, pray now for your service to Yahuwah Elohim, that he may put away his mortality from amongst us. And Abraham prayed on account of Amalek and his subjects. And Yahuwah heard the prayer of Abraham, and he healed Amalek and all his subjects. And I will stop here. I will continue to read the book of Jasher, which has 92 chapters, and we are at 21. I am ending at 20 on this day. Thank you. Shalom.